These types of questions are quite common in competitive exams, and at the first glance it may seem very difficult, but I promise these are one of the most easy questions to solve. So our today's topic is comparing fractions. Before we do that, there are two types of fraction: proper fraction and improper fraction. Proper fraction are those which are represented in the form of a by b, where b, the denominator, is greater than the numerator. For example, if you observe over here, all the denominators are greater than the numerator. All of these are considered proper fraction. Whereas over here, the numerator is greater than the denominator. You can consider these examples. You can very clearly observe the numerator are greater than the denominator. Now, if I find the decimal value of these, it would be 0.5 over here, 0.75 for 3 by 4, 7 by 10 would be represented as 0.7, and 1 by 6 would be 0.16. If you observe these values, all of them are less than 1. So we can very clearly say that proper fraction are less than 1, always. Whereas if I convert these into decimal format, it would become 3.33, 2.5, 2.25, and you can very clearly observe these are greater than 1. So we can very clearly say that improper fraction are always greater than 1. Now, if we compare these two, we can say that proper fraction is less than 1, improper fraction is greater than 1. So proper fraction would be less than the improper fraction. We can say proper fraction would be always less than improper fraction. Let's take an example. If we compare these two very clearly, the first one is proper, the second one is improper. Let's try to find their decimal values. This would turn out to be 0.2 something, 0.3 actually. Whereas this would turn out to be 2.4. Isn't that very clear that the improper fraction would be greater than proper every time? Just keep this in mind. This will help in the longer run. Now, our actual topic, comparing fractions. Now, there can be two different questions which will be solved using two different methods. First is finding highest or lowest among the given fraction. You solve that using cross multiplication method. But if they ask you to arrange them in ascending or descending order, you use LCM of numerator or denominator or their difference. Well, we'll learn about these in some time. Let's start with cross multiplication method. First question, find the highest among these. Now, how do we cross multiply? This is how we cross multiply. I guess most of you are aware with this. What you do is move the denominator to the numerator section. Move the denominator to the numerator section. Now, if you observe, this turns out to be 5 times 5 and 3 times 9. That equals to 25 and 27. Well, we can very clearly see 27 is greater than 25. So we will say 3 by 5 is greater compared to 5 by 9. So if these two were the only fractions given, we would have said 3 by 5 is greater. But again, we are left with these two. So now we'll compare the winner. We are supposed to find the highest over here, and for now the winner is 3 by 5. Now we'll compare this winner with 7 by 12 say. We'll again cross multiply. 3 times 12 would turn out to be 36. Let me write 36 over here. And 7 times 5 would turn out to be 35. Let me write 35 over here. Very clear, 36 is greater than 35. So we'll say this fraction is still greater than this one. So still the winner is 3 by 5. Now we'll have to compare this winner with the last contender, which is 8 by 11. Let's cross multiply. 3 times 11 would turn out to be 33, whereas 5 times 8, remember, the denominator would move to the numerator section. 5 times 8 would turn out to be 40. Now we can very clearly see 40 is greater. So we can say that 8 by 11 would be greater than 3 by 5 because the latter part is greater. So highest of all would be 8 by 11. This is our final answer. Simple as that. Now, what if they ask us to find the lowest of all? We are going to use the same method, exactly same method. We are going to compare the first two, cross multiply them. This would turn out to be 5 2s are 10 and 3 3s are 9. We can very clearly see 9 is smaller over here. Sir, why are we comparing smaller? Because they have asked the lowest value, right? So we'll say 9 is smaller over here. So if we compare these two, the smaller one would be 3 by 5. So in this case, our winner is 3 by 5. Alright. Now we'll compare the winner with the next fraction. We compare these two. We get 3 times 8, that is 24. Let me write 24. 24 and 5 times 5 turns out to be 25. Now again you'll observe 24 only is smaller, so still 3 by 5 is lowest compared to this. Our actual winner over here is 3 by 5, but still 7 by 9 is left over here. We'll have to compare 3 by 5, which is our winner, to the next contender, which is 7 by 9. Let's multiply. Shall I say let's cross multiply? 9 times 3 would turn out to be 27. Let me write 27. And 5 times 7 would turn out to be 35. Let me write 35 over here. We can very clearly see 27 is the lower one. So we'll say 3 by 5 is still the lowest one of all, and this is our winner. This is our winner. For those who did not understood, we got 3 by 5 to be lowest from compared to 2 by 3 and compared to 5 by 8. What we did is we wrote 3 by 5 and 7 by 9 because 7 by 9 was the second contender, or shall I say the last contender. We cross multiplied them. That turns out to be 9. That turns out to be 9 times 3, which is 27, and 5 times 7, that is 35. Very clearly 27 is the lower number compared to 35. So we'll say the first is lower, the first over here would be lower, that is 3 by 5. 3 by 5 is the lowest of all. Now, arrange in ascending or descending order. You'll be given 3 or 4 fractions and you'll be asked to arrange them in ascending or descending order. Now, there are multiple methods to solve this question, but the concept would be same, which is LCM. We'll find the LCM of either the numerator or the denominator or the difference of both. Let me explain. Whenever you are given a fraction, there is numerator or denominator, or we'll find the gap between the two. Let me write G over here. There must be a gap between numerator and denominator. We'll represent that by G. Now, I'll explain the concept in a while. Just try and understand for now. If the numerator or the gap is greater, the fraction would be greater. I know that it might not make sense for now, but just bear with me. If a numerator or the gap is greater, the fraction would be greater. While if the denominator is greater, the fraction would be lesser. Alright? Let me explain what do I mean by that with some examples. Well, they have asked us to arrange these given fractions into ascending order. Now, what I can very clearly observe is I can easily find the LCM of the numerator section. We have 4, 2, 4 and 8 in the numerator section. I can easily find the LCM of the entire numerator, which is 8, I'd say. Now what we'll try to do is convert all the numerator to 8. Multiply whatever you wish, just convert all the numerator to 8. And you'd say, so let's multiply this by 2, this by 4, this by 2 again, and this by 1, in order to change all the numerators to 8. You can very clearly see 8 times 1 is 8, 4 times 2 is 8, 2 times 4 is 8, and 4 times again 2 is 8. But we are not going to multiply the numerator, we are just going to multiply the denominator. If you observe, the denominator turns out to be 9 over here, 26, 5 fours are 20, and 15 twos are 30. Now, as I have clearly stated, if the denominator is greater, the fraction would turn out to be lesser. Now, since we are supposed to arrange them in ascending order, first of all, let's arrange these in ascending order or descending, whatever. We can very clearly see, if we talk about the greatest of all, this one would be the first, this is going to be the second, this is going to be the third, and this is going to be the fourth. Now, we are supposed to arrange them in ascending order, that is lower to higher. And we have learned that greater the denominator, lower the fraction is. Let's check for the greatest denominator, which is 30. That means since the denominator is the greatest, the whole fraction would be the lowest. Let me write that. 4 by 15 is the lowest of all. Next would be, after 30, the next highest denominator is 26. And higher the denominator, lower the fraction. So the next fraction would be 4 by 13. Similarly, the denominator next to 26 is 20. Higher the denominator, lower the fraction. So next would be 2 by 5. And anyway, the last one would be 8 by 9. I hope you understood. If you didn't, let me explain again. Since you are supposed to find them in ascending order, arrange them in ascending order. You see, I want the lowest fraction to be over here and highest fraction to be over here. In order to find the lowest fraction, you find the highest denominator. The highest denominator was 30, which is fraction 4 by 5. Simple. Let's solve this again. Arrange these in ascending order. Now, I can see that this time the previous logic does not suit. The LCM of the numerator is very difficult to find. But well, I can easily find the LCM for the denominator. We have 12, 9, 24 and 6. Well, we can say the LCM to be LCM of denominator to be 72, right? Now we know that we are supposed to convert all the denominators to 72. What we'll say is, let us multiply the first fraction by say 6, second fraction by 8, third fraction by 3, and fourth fraction by 12. 6 times 12 will be 72, 24 times 3 is 72, 9 times 8 is 72, and 12 times 6 is 72 as well. Now, since the denominators are equal, we'll just find the numerator section. 5 times 6 would be 30. 11 times 8 would be 88. 19 times 3 is 57. And 5 times 12 is 60. We actually have learned that greater the numerator, higher the fraction would be. So we'll find the, let's say, since we are supposed to arrange them in ascending order, which is lower to, we are supposed to find the fractions from lower to higher. Now, since higher the numerator, higher the fraction becomes, we'll start by the lowest of all, that is 30. Let that be first number, then the second would be 57, third would be 60, and fourth would be 88. Since we are supposed to arrange the fraction from lower to higher, and the numerator is directly proportional to fraction, higher the numerator, higher the fraction would be. We'll start by taking the smallest numerator, that is 30. So the smallest fraction of all would be 5 by 12. Then the next highest would be 19 by 24, which is 57. Then it would be 60, which is 5 by 6. And then the last one would be 88, which is 11 by 9. Simple as that. Now, in this question, well, we can very clearly see it would be very difficult for us to equalize or find LCM of numerators or denominators. Very difficult it is going to be. So instead what we do is we find the gap between them. Gap over here is of 6, over here it is of 1, gap is of 2, gap over here is of 3. And now we find the LCM of the gap. We find the LCM, let me write it over here. We find the LCM for the gap, which turns out to be 6. Now we multiply this by 1, this by 6, this by 3, and this by 2. 6 times 1 is 6, 1 times 6 is 6, 2 times 3 is 6, and 3 times 2 as well as 6. We equalize the gaps. Now you can either find the numerator or find the denominator, does not make any difference. Let's use the numerator. 995 times 1 would be 995. 1000 times 6, sorry, 10,000 times 6 would be 60,000. 1111 times 3 would be 3333. Whereas 100 times 2 would be 200. If we are supposed to arrange these in descending order, descending over here means highest to lowest. We'll arrange these as well from highest to lowest. Let's arrange them from highest to lowest. Highest one of all is 60,000. Second one would be 3333. Third would be 995, and fourth would be 200. Write their respective fractions accordingly. For 60,000, the fraction is 10,000 by 9999. This is our highest fraction. The second highest is 3333, which turns out to be 4 times 1, 1113. The next highest is 995, whose fraction is 995 by 1001. And the last fraction is 200, which is 100 by 103. 100 by 103. That is how we arrange the given fractions into ascending or descending order using the concept of LCM of numerator, denominator, or the difference, or shall I say this to be gap, difference or gap. But if you are supposed to find the highest or lowest, better use cross multiplication. That was all about comparing fractions. Well, if you like the video, please hit the like button, comment any suggestion which you have, and watch the previous videos on number system. Thank you. Have a nice day.